Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is our 24 World News Program. I'm Abdurrahim Kasho and this is our top headlines. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson survived a no-confidence vote on Monday, securing enough support from his Conservative Party to remain in office. Mid-Ukraine-Russia conflict, the UN Human Rights Office has received 124 allegations of conflict related to sexual violence and human trafficking, 97 of them involving women and girls. Mexican president's boycott summit over U.S. elimination of Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela. Honduran as President Zamora Castro is also skipping this week's summit. While high school seniors in most parts of China are doing last-minute preparations for the college entrance exam, that peers in Shanghai returned to school for in-person classes after 2 months lockdown on Monday. Hello again and welcome. Those were today's top stories. Despite a significant revolt against his leadership, Boris Johnson has won the backing of majority of Tory MPs and will remain in office as the Prime Minister of Great Britain. In all, 220 Tory MPs voted today. They had confidence in leadership, while 148 voted against him. Nabil Khazini.
What was once a gathering for fun in Downing Street has turned into a different meeting for the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom, but this time in another setting and for another more serious matter. It was here where Tory MPs came for a confidence vote aimed at ousting the Prime Minister, and this was the result.
359 ballots were cast, no spoiled ballots, that the vote in favour of having confidence in Boris Johnson as leader was 211 votes, and the vote against was 148 votes. And therefore, I can announce that the Parliamentary Party does have confidence.
Last night was decisive for Boris Johnson. Despite the significant number of 148 MPs who lost confidence in him, he will now remain in office with an immunity from a Conservative leadership challenge for a year.
I think it's an extremely good, positive, conclusive, decisive result, which enables us to move on, to unite and to focus on delivery. And that is exactly what we're going to do.
However, this is not the end of the story for the Prime Minister. Johnson's unpopularity in his own party has risen sharply in recent months, making an internal conflict becoming louder and more obvious.
Well, I think that technically a majority of one is enough for tonight. The problem will be whether or not he survives and has credibility on an issue of leadership ongoing. And the precedents so far are that anybody who wins by a bit doesn't last for very much longer afterwards.
A difficult challenge. Our economy opened up faster than other comparable economies, particularly the vaccine rollout. He has shown himself to be a good, strong leader who gets the big decisions right, and he has a mandate from the British people.
A support that Boris Johnson will not get from the other side.
Conservative MPs made their choice tonight. They have ignored the British public and hitched themselves and their party firmly to Boris Johnson and everything that he represents.
The rules of the Conservative Party mean he is safe from another confidence vote for the next 12 months. But those rules could technically be changed if there is enough political will to do so.
In Ukraine, Russia filed allegations of sexual violence and human trafficking by Russian troops in Ukraine are mounting as the conflict passes its 100-day mark. At a meeting of the Security Council, senior United Nations officials and women and children fleeing the conflicts are being targeted for trafficking and exploitation.
In March, for predators and human traffickers, war is not a tragedy. It is an opportunity. Women and children fleeing the conflict are being targeted for trafficking and exploitation, in some cases facing further exposure to rape and other risk while seeking refuge.
And this is a strategy to establish control over communities. Russia is using sexual violence and rape as a terror to control civilians at the temporarily occupied territories.
There have been multiple reports from survivors of Russia's soldiers breaking down doors to basements where women were sheltering and raping them. These terrible acts were done in front of their children, and they were filmed by the Russian soldiers. These are bone-chilling accounts, and we know for every account we hear, many more are unknown.
Russia's UN Ambassador Vasily Nabanzia stormed out of a UN Security Council meeting on Monday as European Council President Charles Michel addressed the 15-member body and accused Moscow of fueling a global food crisis with its invasion of Ukraine. Michel had also accused Russian troops of war crimes and crimes against humanity, specifically citing reports of sexual violence, the focus of the Security Council meeting.
We hear reports of Russian forces wielding sexual violence as a weapon of war. Sexual violence is a war crime, a crime against humanity, a tactic of torture, terror, and repression, shameful acts in a shameful war. And this must be exposed to the light of day and prosecuted without impunity.
I would once again like to categorically refute any accusations against Russian service personnel of sexual violence. We roundly condemn this lie.
Ukrainian president said that Russian army is more powerful and more numerous, which may not be in the advantage of Ukraine. But he declared that they will not give up. Miriam Ziano, not follow.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russian forces outnumber them and have more advantage in the battle for the eastern city of Severodonetsk, but declared that Ukraine will fight back.
The situation in the east is difficult. You know the situation in Severodonetsk. The Russians are outnumbering us and are more powerful, but we are maintaining the situation.
The mayor of Severodonetsk confirmed that the situation was constantly changing and intense street fighting had been taking place. As the operation goes on, Russia's main focus has become the industrial city Severodonetsk in the Donbas region, while other towns are under constant shelling. Meanwhile, in Kiev, the railway infrastructure is in ruins after having been the target of several Russian airstrikes, the first since late April in the Ukrainian capital. Moscow says that its missiles destroyed T-72 tanks provided by Eastern European nations and other armored vehicles, while Ukrainian officials claim that the installations are just railway wagon maintenance facilities. The Ukrainian capital, encircled a few months ago by the Russian army, is largely regaining its life, and some satellite residents are reconstructing their homes.
The Ukrainian army has said that it had pushed the Russian fleet back more than 100 kilometers from Ukraine's Black Sea coast, where Moscow's ships have been carrying out a naval blockade for weeks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Kiev wants anti-ship weapons that could secure the safe passage of its exports.
There are currently between 20 and 25 million tons of grain blocked, and this figure could increase to 70 up to 75 million tons this autumn.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that decision by Montenegro, North Macedonia and Bulgaria to close their airspace to prevent his plane from flying to Serbia was unprecedented, but won't affect good relations with Belgrade. Lavrov said on Monday that the longer the range of weapons that the Western countries will supply to Ukraine, the further Moscow will move away the line of threats.
Этих возмутительных действий суверенного государства, линию, с которой произошло, конечно, немыслимое, я понимаю.
Of course, the inconceivable happened, and I understand the interest in our opinion of these outrageous measures. It was a deprivation of the sovereign state's right to pursue a foreign policy.
Произошло, конечно, немыслимое.
The more long-range weapons you provide, the further we'll move from our territory and the line beyond which neo-Nazis can threaten the Russian Federation. It seems that once again the puppeteers in Brussels really didn't want to give us a platform so that in the capital of Serbia we could confirm Russia's position on the Kosovo problem and the problem of Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Неонацисты могут угрожать Российской Федерации.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador announced on Monday that he would not participate in the summit of the Americas because the United States excluded Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. From his part, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro hailed his Mexican counterpart's decision and also accused the U.S. of discrimination.
No acepto.
Regarding the Summit of the Americas, I can now inform the Mexican people that I will not be attending the summit. Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard will represent me and the government. I'm not going to the top because not every country in the Americas is invited.
We have expressed our admiration for clarity and courage of President López Obrador and all our support for the message he has sent in recent weeks of abandoning the world of sanctions, blockades, exclusions, and discrimination. What the government of the United States of America is doing is an act of discrimination of three nations, of three governments.
Another migrant caravan is on its way, this time starting in southern Mexico and arriving in Los Angeles just in time for the Summit of the Americas, where a number of regional leaders are meeting. Islam Seed has more to tell.
Thousands of migrants, many of them Venezuelans, departed from southern Mexico early Monday, heading to the United States borders. The march, which coincides with the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles this week.
God willing, we're aspiring that. Look at the march. Look at the people. Many children come here. Many people who really need to get out of here. We've been here for almost a month and we haven't left.
According to migration activists, the caravan represents various nationalities of people fleeing hardship in their home countries, including many from Venezuela.
We tell the leaders we're not anyone's currency. We're not going to wait until the Mexican Commissioner for Refugee Assistance decides on our lives in August. Today we're not going to allow the National Institute for Migration to give us a solution until September. Today, the free citizens of Latin America walk out of this immigration prison that our officials are willing to turn Tapachula into.
The migrants, including many children, have come across harsh weather conditions to reach U.S. borders, and they hope they would grab the attention of leaders at the summit.
They always come for us and tell us they will give us permission for immigration, and what they have done is to take prisoners. It is a fraud. We have already been here for 2 months, and they are refusing to give us permission.
Movement activists said the group could be one of the region's largest migrant caravans in recent years.
I sold all my beans and all what I had so I could come. My husband, myself, my daughter, my grandchildren, my niece, my brother, and all 15 of us. All 15 of us are here.
U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to announce a regional pact on migration later this week. Last year, numbers of migrants hit record as they attempted to cross the U.S.-Mexico borders illegally.
Wendy Sherman warned of forceful response if North Korea conducted a nuclear test in her meeting with South Korean and Japanese allies to discuss the escalating standoff. According to the US and South Korean officials, North Korea is almost ready to conduct another nuclear test at its nuclear testing site in the northeastern town of Pongiri.
The nuclear test would be in complete violation of UN Security Council resolutions. There would be a swift and forceful response to such a test because, as the International Atomic Energy Agency itself has said, there is concern that they may conduct a nuclear test. This would be very destabilizing to the world's security, and I believe that not only the ROK in the United States and Japan, but the entire world will respond in a strong and clear manner. We are prepared.
Across China, high school students are set to take the Gaokao, which is the country's national college entrance exam. This year, a new high of 11.93 million students across the country will take the examination. These students are the first to leave high school after 3 years of secondary education disrupted by the pandemic and faced with the daily routine of online lessons, COVID tests, and psychological stress. Zionist government on Monday failed to pass a bill extending legal protection for settlers in the occupied West Bank, marking a major setback for the fragile coalition against Palestinian resistance. The failure to renew the bill also highlighted the separate legal system in the West Bank, where nearly 500,000 Jewish settlers enjoy the benefits of Zionist citizenship, while some 3 million Palestinians live under military rule that is now well into its sixth decade. 3 major human rights groups have said the situation amounted to apartheid. The US stated on Tuesday that Iran's nuclear breakout time was down to weeks and blamed the previous administration as negotiations between Tehran and world powers continued to stall. The White House subsequently specified Saki, the US envoy, was referring to the breakout time and was not referring to the production of an actual nuclear weapon.
It's in no one's interest that the cooperation between the agency and Iran diminishes even further. So I speculate what's going to happen. I hope that all that is going to happen is that as a result of the deliberations of the board this week, we will come out of this with a sense of commitment to solve this thing once and for all. Because as I said, this is not going to disappear because they continue to enrich in a quite sustained way, and so it's a matter of time where they get to one or more so-called significant quantities, as you know, which is the quantity for which, as the terminology indicates, for which the and since they are continuing with the process, well, then it's a matter of just a few weeks, let's say. Let's put it like that.
Interim Prime Minister of Libya, Abdelhamid al-Dabeiba, said that the strong partnership between Libya and Nigeria will support the economy of a number of neighboring African countries, noting that establishing a free exchange areas between the two countries will be beneficial.
I call on all Libyan companies and business owners to head towards the Algerian market and to discuss investment opportunities, and we pledge to reach clear and practical arrangements with the Algerian side to facilitate movement between the two countries and facilitate the procedures for transporting goods and establish an industrial and investment projects in all aspects.
Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, signed a 10-gun-related bill making New York as the first state to enact legislation following the series of mass shootings in the country, which left many innocent dead. The bill prohibits New Yorkers under 21 from buying semi-automatic rifles. The city will continue to invest in prevention of gun-related crimes by partnering with the local communities and continuing to strengthen laws by putting pressure on Congress.
In New York, we are taking bold, strong action. We're tightening the red flag laws to keep guns away from dangerous people. And we're raising the age of semi-automatic weapons so no 18-year-old can walk in on their birthday and walk out with an AR-15. Those days are over.
The Dominican Republic's Environment Minister Orlando Jorge Muriel was shot dead in his office on Monday. A spokesman for the president's office, Homero Figueroa, said that a suspect named as Miguel Cruz was arrested. The suspect was a close friend to the minister. However, the motives for the attack wasn't clear and no further details were immediately available.
Las informaciones que manejamos hasta ahora.
The information we have so far indicate that this morning, the Environment Minister lost his life after being attacked with a firearm at his office. Miguel Cruz, the person identified as the shooter, was a personal friend of the deceased minister. The suspect is under custody of the National Police and Public Ministry. The motives are being investigated.
Search continues in a remote part of Brazil's Amazon after a British journalist and Indigenous Affairs official went missing in the largest jungles in the world. The area has witnessed a violent clashes between fishermen, poachers, and government agents. After a Catholic Church attack which took lives of 50 people, including children, by gunmen in southwestern Nigeria, some of the survivors' relatives narrated that had happened at the crime scene as their loved ones are being treated for their injuries at a local hospital.
A group of people just entered inside the church and began to shoot. Just anyhow, they were shooting. They were killing many people, and many people also got injured. And my daughter is one of them. She has plenty of injuries. There is one on her head, one on the back and bum. Multiple injuries yesterday, and the wounds are too deep.
Raila Odinga, who served as Kenya's prime minister from 2008 to 2013, has received the endorsement of the Independent Election and Boundaries Commission to stand in the next presidential election, which will take place on August 9. Odinga has been backed by the outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta, who announced the partnership to elect Odinga as the head of the state. Osama Ayadi.
As former Kenya's president, minister and long-time opposition leader Raila Odinga was cleared by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to run in the upcoming presidential election set to take place on August 9th. Kenya's outgoing president and opposition leader pledged to heal divisions in a surprise announcement on Friday.
Is greater than any one individual, and that for this country to come together, leaders must come together. Leaders must be able to discuss their differences. Leaders must be able to discuss freely and openly what ails our country, what is the reason and the cause for the ethnic divisions and frictions that we see across the country.
Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta called opposition leader Raila Odinga his brother on Friday and promised that they will begin a process of bringing their people together after last year's contentious elections. Kenyatta also stated in a speech in Nairobi that they have a team leader in the name of Raila Amolo Odinga.
We have a team leader in the name of Raila Amolo Odinga.
Odinga explained to national television that it's time to resolve the country's differences as the two politicians made their first public appearance together since the October 26th repeat presidential election last year.
Come together today to say this dissent stops here.
Kenya's presidential election will take place on the 9th of August 2022 as the country is expecting Odinga to be the front runner to have the top position in the country. Odinga was banned from running for president in Kenya. However, for this time, he had the surprising support from the outgoing president, Uhuru Kenyatta.
And for more international news, let's follow this report.
Rulers of Mali military proposed the restoration of civilian rule for the year 2024, following an August 2020 coup and a failure to meet a deadline for elections, which led to paralyzing sanctions. Colonel Guita, the military leader, signed a decree on Monday that stated, I cite, the deadline of the transition is determined at 24 months from March 26, 2022.
Hundreds protest outside the La Paz court demanding the sentencing of former Bolivian President Jananet, accused of plotting a coup against her predecessor, Evo Morales, as her trial resumes.
Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez warned of the risk of a global food shortage at the enrichment of the few at the expense of minorities as an effect of the war in Ukraine. During a press conference, he defended the proposal for a tax on windfield profits before it is debated by Parliament.
We're definitely at risk of the world entering into a process of a very large food shortage, a growing risk because two of the major exporters have left the wheat market, for example, or the sunflower market. And this is not the world's supply today. This is food that is lacking in the world.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro announced on Monday a set of proposals to reduce fuel taxes and attempt to lower high fuel prices, which have been the main impulse of inflation. And it is seen as the biggest obstacle for the Brazilian leader, who will run for a second term in the next presidential election.
To this end, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.